Here is the recap of the first and second season of Silo. The series is set in a huge 144-floor silo, which is home to 10,000 people. No one remembers who built it and when. And most importantly, because of what they are underground. The only thing people are sure of is that it's impossible to survive on the surface. Above the ground there is a single camera, and in the cafeterias there are huge screens. If anyone comes out of the bunker, in a few minutes they die, even though they are wearing protective suits. It is rumored that 140 years ago there was a rebellion in the silo, which destroyed all information about the past. People don't even know what the fours, the sky, or the oceans are. The local government, for some reason, has banned all information and items from the past, calling them relics. There are severe punishments for possessing such things or sharing such information. Up to and including so-called clean, which I'll talk about a little later. On top of this, the government has banned all technology related to advanced microelectronics, magnifying devices, and elevators. All this is supervised by the so-called judicial department, which, although subject to the rules of the silo, often exceeds its authority. Even the local sheriff and mayor can't do anything about it. Sheriff Holston and his wife Allison want to have children and finally get permission to remove a special capsule preventing them from doing so, since the birth rate in the bunker is strictly controlled. However, the woman fails to become pregnant during the year she is given. Desperate, Allison meets Gloria, a self-proclaimed fertility expert, and she tells her a secret. It turns out there is some kind of conspiracy. The government allows only certain people to reproduce, and no one actually took out her birth control capsule. It's all about Allison digging into history and trying to find out what really happened 140 years ago. Allison works in the IT department and is writing an article about recovering encrypted data. Her management forbids her to publish such a thing. However, computer engineer George Wilkins manages to read it. He contacts the woman and asks to visit him on the lower floors. When they meet, he shows her a relic, an encrypted hard drive. For several hours she tries to decipher it and eventually succeeds. The disk contains a huge amount of data. George discovers a map of the bunker and some kind of tunnel leading from the lowest floor of the asylum that no one knows about. After a while, they find a video clip of the surface. Instead of the wasteland they normally see on the screens in the silo, they see grass, blue sky, and flying birds. Soon, Allison begins to lose her mind and tries to tell everyone about the conspiracy. When she is arrested, she tells everyone that she wants to go outside. Now it's time to tell you what a clean is. If anyone in the silo reports that he wants to come out, he is punished most heavily. He is kicked out of the bunker. However, they give him a special suit, as well as a rag to clean the lens of the camera at the entrance so that people can see what is happening on the surface. The condemned man may not clean the lens, but for some reason absolutely everyone wipes the camera and then dies. Allison secretly tells her husband Halston that she will only clean the lens if everything on the surface really isn't as shown on the screens. Soon the woman is thrown out of the silo and it turns out that everything really is different there. She cleans the lens, but drops dead after walking a few steps. 2 years later, Holston learns that computer engineer George Wilkins has committed suicide, and sheriff begins an investigation. He learns that the man was close to Juliet, a genius mechanic who works on the lowest floor with a generator. We learn that in the past, George has shown Juliet an even lower level of the silo that everyone has forgotten about. There they see the huge drill with which the bunker was built. At the bottom is a water tank, and somewhere in there is a tunnel, which George learned about from the information from the hard drive. Juliet thinks that someone actually killed George and tells the sheriff that her boyfriend was a relic collector. The woman realizes that Halston isn't going to turn her into the judicial branch, so she shows him the floor with the drill and the water tank. There they find a hard drive and a video camera hidden by George. However, they don't know what it is. Halston promises to figure it all out and signal her if anything happens. A few months later, Sheriff Halston informs his deputy Sam that he too wants to go outside. After appropriate procedures, Sam is kicked to the surface, where he also sees a beautiful picture. Although the man states that he will not clean the lens, he wipes it down, hoping that people will realize the truth. After which he reaches the corpse of his wife and dies beside her. The sheriff leaves behind a note saying he wants Juliet as his successor. The mayor and deputy sheriff descend to the 144th floor. After learning more about Juliet, they decide, against the wishes of the legal department, to appoint her as sheriff. She at first refuses, but when she finds truth written on the back of her badge, she realizes that this is the signal that Halston was talking about. Juliet then agrees to accept the position of sheriff. Before she leaves, the woman gives her old friend George's video camera and asks her to find out what it is. A few episodes later, we learn that such technology is too advanced for the silo, and no one has ever seen anything like it. Also, while fixing the generator, they have to temporarily de-energize the entire bunker, which no one has ever done. Before the lights went out on the dining room screens, people saw a different picture for a moment. Soon someone kills the mayor and the deputy sheriff. Juliet steps into her position, and Paul Billings becomes her deputy. The man, though obsessed with the rules of the silo, is not a bad man, whom Juliet begins to trust. Meanwhile, Bernard Holland, the head of the IT department, takes over the mayor's place for a while. Although he does not like Juliet, he cooperates with her. Juliet tries to investigate the deaths of the mayor and a former deputy sheriff, but realizes that the legal department is trying to hush up the case by putting an innocent man on the stand. We also meet Sims, the head of security. Roughly speaking, they handle all the dirty stuff in the silo and are reporting to the judicial department. Juliet finds the real killer, which turns out to be a subordinate of Sims. He kills the guy, pretending he didn't know anything, after which the case is closed. Juliet continues to investigate the death of her lover George and finds his ex-girlfriend from whom he bought the relics. She learns that Juliet is not going to give her up to the law and gives her one of the most forbidden relics, a children's book written before the bunker was founded. Juliet returns to her apartment, and on the pages she sees pictures and a story about the outside world. The ocean, the forests, the stars, and so on. After a moment, however, we see that there are some people watching her through a video camera. They have the entire silo visible on their monitors, and their equipment overtakes what the rest of the people in the bunker have on their heads. It turns out that the group of these people is led by Sims, and he orders his men to start watching Juliet. Juliet continues to investigate and realizes who might know about the hard drive. She finds Gloria, the pregnancy expert from the beginning of the series. However, she is tranquilized by the legal department, which makes it impossible to talk to her. Juliet asks her father Pete, who works as a doctor, for help. We learn that in the past, Juliet's mother committed suicide when the lawmen destroyed the microscope she had constructed. I remind you that such devices are illegal in the bunker. Juliet thought that it was her father who turned her mother into the judicial department, but at the end of the season, it turns out that this is not true. Pete helps his daughter bring Gloria to her senses, and we learn that there used to be a secret group of people in the bunker called the Flame Keepers. They were collecting relics and hiding them from the government. Gloria tells us that many people are constantly being monitored through mirrors behind which are advanced video cameras. The elderly woman also reports that the former sheriff hid something in her vent. Juliet then pulls out the hard drive she was looking for. Sims, who comes after her, interrogates the old woman and finds out exactly what Juliet pulled out of the vent. Earlier, Juliet meets Lucas, a computer scientist, in the dining room. He stares at the stars on the screen all night long and tries to understand what they are. I remind you that people do not know anything about the surface at all. In the present tense, Juliet invites Lucas to her place. She shows him the hard drive and asks for help deciphering it. She even breaks a mirror in the apartment to prove a government conspiracy. However, he gets scared and refuses to help Juliet. Juliet escapes from the guards and tries to tell the mayor Bernard about the conspiracy of the legal department, but it turns out that Bernard controls the entire silo and Sims obeys him. They arrest Juliet, but she manages to escape. The guards search the woman's apartment, but find neither the hard drive nor the book. However, Sheriff's Deputy Paul Billings, who arrives after the search, finds the well-hidden book. After reading it, the stunned Billings keeps one page and burns the rest. Soon the computer scientist Lucas is interrogated, and under pressure tells everything he knows, like the fact that the hard drive had the serial number 18 on it. The same number is also on the key Bernard always carries with him. Meanwhile, Juliet is trying to gain access to the hard drive. She asks for help from an acquaintance whom she previously saved life, and he connects her with a hacker. They then discover on the hard drive a video left by George in which he confesses his love for her. The man tells her he has found the secret tunnel on the lower level and asks Juliet to find it too. Also, the main characters see the footage from the surface. They decide to broadcast the video to the entire silo, but Bernard shuts down the entire system so no one will see the secret. However, a few people in the command center see it. The guards catch the men, but Juliet keeps slipping away from them. Eventually, the villains figure out that she is moving around in a garbage shaft and catch her. Juliet agrees to cooperate and come out to clean, but asks to be told about George's death. Bernard shows her the footage from that day, and we see that he really did kill himself, but did it to protect Juliet. The legal department caught him, and he was afraid under torture to reveal that his beloved also knew about the silo's secrets. The staff prepares Juliet for the clean, but her acquaintances from the lower levels of the supply department tape her protective suit with special, very rare, airtight duct tape. The woman goes outside and sees the same beautiful picture, but something bothers her. The frames are identical to those in the video, right down to the flying birds. She realizes that this is a false picture, and that it is only shown to those who have come to the surface. The others in the bunker see the original. The woman refuses to wipe the camera lens and goes outside the crater where the entrance to the silo is. When she does, the picture shuts off, and Juliet sees a post-apocalyptic world, as well as dozens of similar craters with entrances to other silos. Meanwhile, Mayor Bernard uses a key with the number 18 and opens some kind of secret door. This is the end of the first season. Let's pause for a moment. Here you can like this video, subscribe to my channel, and write some comments. Thanks. We are shown the history of another silo, number 17. Its inhabitants staged a rebellion and killed their leadership. Then they all went to the surface, where they actually after a while died. In our time, Juliet walks through the wasteland and stumbles upon the entrance to this silo, around which there are thousands of long-dead bodies. She realizes that she won't have enough air for long, so she tries to open the airlock. She eventually succeeds, and after closing the door behind her, she has to break her helmet with a tire iron to keep from suffocating. She begins to survey the half-ruined bunker and sees that there's only light in the IT department. The bridge to it is destroyed, so Juliet decides to climb down there on a rope from the top floor. Suddenly, the rope breaks, and the woman falls down, but not far, as there is water just a couple of levels down. Turns out all the lower floors are flooded. Juliet goes up to the place where she tied the rope, and it looks like someone cut it, but the woman doesn't pay much attention to it. Soon she builds a real bridge to get to the IT department, and hears music coming from behind the huge door to the server room. The same door is in the silo where Juliet came from. Bernard used to open it with his key number 18 when there were any difficulties in the bunker. Now we know that 18 was the number of the silo. Juliet knocks on this door, and some man looks out the window. He didn't want to open it first, but since he has been alone for years, he asks Juliet to stay. However, he does not allow her to enter his room, as he has sworn not to let anyone in. A man named Solo tells Juliet that he doesn't remember how long ago the rebellion in the silo took place. It all started when another guilty man who was sent to clean the camera lens didn't just refuse to clean it for some reason, he wrote the word lie on it. The men thought that the management had been lying to them all along and it was okay to live on the surface, so they came out of the bunker. And they didn't suffocate right away because most likely the concentration of toxic substances in the air that day on the surface wasn't as strong, and they lived long enough for everyone to get out of the silo. Juliet realizes that she also didn't wipe her lens and give people hope. Perhaps now a rebellion has started in her bunker as well. She asks Solo to help her find a new suit with which she can return to her silo. But the only place where these suits were made is too deep underwater. Juliet then decides to use a firefighting outfit that she can swim to, so she gathers a pump with which she can breathe underwater and sets out to find it. She eventually finds it, but falls unconscious from her earlier wounds and the resulting infection. Solo gives Juliet the cure and she comes to her senses, except he takes away her helmet and asks her to fix the pump on the flooded level, since the floor where he lives will be underwater in 10 months. If she helps, he'll give her the missing part of the suit. Juliet goes underwater and repairs the pump, but suddenly the air supply through the hose stops and she begins to suffocate. She manages to surface, though the effects on her body have been traumatic due to the decompression sickness. Juliet notices that someone has cut the hose and at first thinks it is Solo, but soon notices blood. Strangers appear who tell her to leave and shoot her with an arrow. We learn that after the uprising 40 years ago, there are people left in this silo. However, they are teenagers who don't know anything at all about what happened before, and they were afraid to go near the server room, since their parents died there, who tried to break the door. When Juliet came in, they were scared, and tried to kill her. They were the ones who cut her rope. And when she went underwater, they attacked Solo to sneak into his server room and take his food. Meanwhile, Juliet tries to convince the teens to let Solo go since he has her helmet. Eventually, Juliet manages to get through to Solo to let them inside, and he shows them his place. It turns out he was the son of the head of IT, who was killed during the rebellion right in front of him. Soon, Juliet packs up her costume, says goodbye to everyone, and heads back to her silo. Let's go back in time a little bit. After Juliet left her silo, Bernard watched her through the helmet cameras, but as soon as she got to Bunker 17, the connection was cut off. Mind you, she refused to wipe the camera lens. Bernard realizes that such disobedience could lead to a revolution in the silo. So after reading the instructions that were written by his ancestors, he takes action. The instructions say that in order to prevent people from uniting against the leadership, the upper floors should be turned against the lower floors. All because the lower floors have a generator, and therefore the ability to shut it down at any time. Bernard starts by trying to figure out how Juliet survived. He takes into custody an elderly woman named Walker, who raised Juliet, and a head of supplies named Carla. While old couple are in jail, they are constantly being watched through hidden cameras and soon learn about the very duct tape that was used to seal Juliet's suit. Bernard decides to turn this to his advantage and announces to the entire bunker that Juliet was able to go further than the others thanks to their new development, but still died over the hill. Only this does not convince the population of the silo, and people believe that the woman actually survived. In the previous season, Juliet asked Patrick for help when she was hacking into the hard drive, and he was subsequently arrested. Since he knows too much, Sims offers him a deal. Patrick will help turn the upper floors against the lower floors, and he will be given a special substance that will erase his memory. Patrick's job is to throw a Molotov cocktail at the deputies during a small skirmish on the lower level. Of course, nobody was going to erase his memory, so during this incident, one of the deputies tries to kill Patrick after he threw the firebomb. However, the wounded man manages to escape. Soon, he is found by Sheriff Billings, and to make Patrick believe him, he shows him the very page from the book he had saved. Then the man is taken to the infirmary, and he tells all about the hard drive and the conspiracy of the judicial department. Billings realizes that Bernard and Sims are really up to something against the lower floors. Bernard gains the support of Judge Meadows, who is really all but his puppet, but is still valued by the common people. However, the woman asks for one favor in return. She is terminally ill, so she wants to leave the bunker before she dies. Sims can be said to be jealous of Bernard to the judge, as he considered himself a favorite of the IT chief and hoped that he would make him his so-called shadow. Roughly speaking, someone who can enter the server room and knows the truth about the bunker. By the way, Judge Meadows was a former shadow. Sims believes that Bernard is intoxicated with power, and all his decisions are not to protect the silo, but to satisfy his ambitions. So Sims starts playing behind his superior's back. He sets things up so that people stop trusting Judge Meadows, and Bernard has to go to a plan he didn't want to resort to because he really loved Meadows. Even though he promised he would let the woman out, Bernard kills the judge. And before her death, he learns that on that very disk was an encrypted message from one Salvador Quinn, who was the head of IT during the last uprising 140 years ago. Meanwhile, the representatives from downstairs, Knox, Shirley, Walker, and Carla, arrive at the legal department to sort things out. However, Bernard sets it up as if they are the ones who killed Judge Meadows, thus further uniting the people against the lower floors. The main characters run downstairs, but the deputies have already built a barricade on the stairs. Walker manages to slip through, as Carla lets herself be caught. And Knox and Shirley are helped by Sim's wife named Camille, who also thinks Bernard can't be trusted. The couple gets to the lower floors and they realize that a battle cannot be avoided. Various skirmishes take place over the course of several episodes. The lower ones turn off everyone's lights in protest, and people notice that only the IT department has electricity left. However, Bernard once again manages to pull through. There is actually a reliable power source of his own there. We soon learn that Walker has started leaking information to Bernard. In return, he promises to let her friend Carla go. Also, the head of the IT department stops trusting Sims, takes away his security clearance, and makes him a judge. That is essentially his puppet. However, Sims has quite a few connections in the silo, so he starts to fight back, and even contacts Sheriff Billings, who shows him the very torn page from the book. Remember Lucas from the previous season, who got scared and wouldn't help Juliet restore the hard drive. He is sent to the mines, which is equivalent to a death sentence. However, 24 hours later, Bernard brings him back and gives him a mission: to recover the data on that hard drive. If he fails, he will be sent back to the mines. Lucas eventually recovers the disk and finds the same message from Salvador Quinn, the head of the IT department from 140 years ago. Except it's encrypted and Lucas lacks knowledge in this area. Bernard notices the man's curiosity and desire for knowledge, so he appoints him as his shadow and takes him to the server room. This room contains the true history of mankind and an artificial intelligence that can be accessed to find missing information from a huge knowledge base. Bernard tells us that there are 51 silos in total, and according to him, they were built over 352 years ago, as further information is lost. There used to be a rebellion every 20 years, and Salvador Quinn realized why this happens. It's because people remember previous uprisings. So Salvador destroyed all the books and other storage devices. Then he began to add a sort of substance to the water, which caused people to gradually forget the past. However, now there is a problem that is more significant than a simple rebellion. Therefore, it is necessary to decipher the message of Salvador Quinn and find out absolutely all the truth about the silo. Lucas manages to decipher the message, and it says that the whole truth can be found by going down to the lowest level and finding a tunnel. The man goes to the lower floors, and with Shirley's support, he reaches the bottom. At the bottom, as we know, there is water, but Lucas thinks that it is not deep. Actually, the man was right, and he finds the mysterious tunnel. Lucas approaches the door. A bright light comes on, and a mechanical voice tells him that only 3 people have come to this door before: Salvador Quinn, Judge Meadows, who was also able to decipher his message in the past, and George Wilkins, Juliet's boyfriend from Season 1. However, the artificial intelligence only communicated with the first 2. It tells Lucas some terrible secret about the bunker that we never find out about this season, and that he must not tell anyone about it or some kind of safeguard system will kick in. Knox guesses that it was Walker who leaked the information. But he forgives her, and together with her, the revolutionaries come up with a plan of further action. They lure all the raiders to the lower levels, and Juliet's father sacrifices himself to blow up the stairs. After that, people head upstairs for answers, and some of them, led by Patrick, want to open the airlock and go outside. At this time, Lucas finds Bernard and secretly tells him about the secret he learned in the tunnel. It is the reason Judge Meadows resigned as a shadow in the past, and it is why Lucas is doing the same now. After hearing this secret, Bernard realizes that everything he did before was pointless, and soon everyone in the silo will die. He gives the keys to Sims and says that now he can see what's inside the server room. Sims goes there with his wife and child. However, the artificial intelligence only allows Camille to stay. The angry crowd has reached the upper-level dining room and is ready to leave the silo. Suddenly, they see a human figure appear on the screen. The people realize it's Juliet, and they're glad they can finally get out, but the woman shows them a cloth that says it's not safe on the surface. Juliet goes down to the airlock where she meets Bernard. He says it's pointless to go back now as everyone will soon be dead, but Juliet reveals that she knows about the safeguard system. It turns out that back in 17, Solo told her what it is. From the surface there are pipes, which under certain circumstances, which we do not know yet, can let toxic air inside the bunker. But it's also thanks to this system that people didn't die on the surface immediately in the 17 Silo uprising 40 years ago. Juliet tells Bernard she knows how to disable the safeguard. She returns to the airlock, and Bernard yells for her to drop to the floor as the fire is turned on at that moment. In the final frames of the episode, we are shown the past. Iran has dropped a dirty bomb on America, and a certain woman suggests that a young senator tell his citizens that their country is preparing to respond to Iran with some radiological weapons. This is the end of the second season. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the like button. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.